Welcome to the Mayo Clinic Human Optimization Project, where we're creating the blueprint to help you become the best human you can be. I'm your guide and fellow optimizer, Christopher Camp. If you've ever been a part of a family, group, team, or organization, you know that your progress, success, and happiness is largely dependent on others that are within that group. This can be a huge benefit if you're surrounded by the right people. But if you're not surrounded by the right people, it can be an enormous challenge. One of the keys to successfully navigating this is having the ability to motivate others that are around you. Not only is this a critical factor that you need, it is an incredibly difficult one. So the title for our session today is Motivating Others: How to Connect with, Inspire, and Motivate the People Around you. To help us work through this session, we have Pablo Lopez. Pablo, thanks for joining us today.
Thank you very much. I'm really excited for this.
So Pablo is a pitcher in Major League Baseball for the Minnesota Twins. He's originally from Venezuela, and at the age of 16, Pablo graduated from high school, was accepted to medical school, initially thought he was going to go, but later decided not to go because soon thereafter he was selected in the Major League Baseball International Draft, ultimately decided to pursue a career in baseball rather than medicine, which I say has worked out pretty well for you so far. Pablo is an incredibly impressive person on the baseball field and off of the field as well. Off of the field, he's fluent in 4 languages: English, Spanish, Portuguese, and Italian.
Yes.
All right. You can speak them. I can barely remember them. In addition to that, he's also won many accolades on the field. In 2023, he was an all-star for the American League. He also holds a record for most consecutive strikeouts to start a baseball game with 9 against the Braves in 2021. He has been nominated for the Roberto Clemente Award twice by his teammates. And that, I think, is an award that really speaks to Pablo's true nature. It's focused on giving back to the community and community service, and it really sort of tells what kind of person he is. He's seen as a leader in the clubhouse and outside of the clubhouse, so I think he's perfectly positioned to help us today. Pablo, we're really glad to have you and looking forward to learning from your vast experience today. All right, so the 3 big questions that we're going to work through today for Pablo. The first, what does it really mean to motivate others, and why does it matter? Our second big question, why do most people struggle to effectively motivate their peers, and what common challenges keep us from inspiring others? And then the last big question, what practical steps can the average person take to become better at motivating those around them? So let's dive right in. So Pablo, what comes to mind for you when you think about motivating others? What does that actually mean?
It means understanding that as a society, we are supposed to work together. You know, individually, there is so much that you can do to have an impact, and we should always take advantage of how much we can do as our own, like individual with our own set of abilities, with our own set of knowledge, skills. But like when you come together as a group, that's when you can really maximize all of you put all of those knowledges, skills, abilities together, and you can really magnify the impact that you can have in society. And just like in nature, within a pack of people, a group of people, there's always someone that's, seeking out to inspire, motivate, push people, whether it's to their limits or just enough to get the most out of them. So when I hear what does it mean to inspire people, it's just about having that unity, having a clear idea of what pushing your peers, pushing the people around you can do for society, can do for your own little group, and can do for the rest of the world out there. So I think it's incredibly important. And there are so many ways to dive in. There are so many different approaches. You have to know the person you're talking to. You gotta know, okay, how do I approach this person? How do I tell them what I'm thinking, what I think they could do better? So it's about having a good set of communication skills, and then just awareness of this is how I would like to be approached, but it's completely different how this person would want to be approached. So I think it's truly a very interesting subject, but it's crucial to our society.
It's interesting. So I'm hearing you talk about this at multiple different levels or different scales. So there's the thought of synergy between a couple of people. Like if you and I work together and we're on the same page, then the two of us will accomplish more than we could, on our own at a small scale. But you're talking about even broader, like the community and society as a whole. And I hadn't thought about that, sort of backing out and looking at this from a big picture standpoint. Like if you can appropriately motivate others, that's not going to help just you and your small little team, but that can have a bigger impact in the community and society. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
100%, because if within your own little group, like if I'm pushing you to be better, and if that really is resonating with you, if I'm just like constantly like, hey, like I love what you're doing, I love your approach, like if there's something else, this is where I think it could be. And like, if I find the right way to approach you, like the right angles or saying the right words that you want to hear that really like makes it click for you, then you're going to carry that with you and then inspire your own little set of people. It could be your core family, it could be the people that are close to you in a whole different area that gets us close. So I think it's a compound effect, like within our own little group, our own little community, we can do it, but like it branches out to, okay, I did it in this area, but like I like what has worked for me, so like I want to take it with my own community or with my family, with my nephew, with my sister, and then it's a compound effect. And I think it's so fascinating to me because, like I mentioned before, there are so many different angles or ways to approach it. So it does take a little bit of skill to know this is how I would want to hear it, but I have the awareness to like, this wouldn't work for this person. So I got to find a better angle, but that's how I see it. It's a compound effect that can snowball into, like a very big thing that can help everyone.
So clearly this is a passion for you. That's obvious, something that you've prioritized throughout your entire career and life. I'm wondering where that passion is coming from. Did you have some people in your life that particularly motivated you or inspired you or demonstrated this that sort of got you turned on to it?
Yeah, I definitely was exposed to what it could be to be a leader or what it could mean to, be crucial to society. Now, the first person I can think of is my dad. He was a doctor for 35 years, and he was like really cherished by the community. He was a doctor in his hometown, which was like 45 minutes away where I grew up, but that's where he worked because that's where he felt close to his community. And he had a really good approach of like, it's good to motivate others as long as you have a good sense of your own identity. If you can't see your flaws, if you can't see what it is that you could get better at, then how are you going to do it for other people? Like I could say that he was like strict, that he really pushed me to my limit, but he always did it with a sense of like, I'm not pushing you just to push you because I know what you could be good at. And then another person I like to think when I see inspirational is my grandmother, my mom's mother. At the time she was old. She was born a while ago, and she was the one that stayed at home with her kids while my grandpa was working in oil tankers. And she didn't have like a college degree, and all 6 of her kids did. My mom was a doctor, engineers, sociologists, college professors, and like my grandma was able to like do that at home, inspiring them of like what they could mean to society, having an impact. Like maybe I didn't do it, but like it doesn't mean that I want my kids not to do it. And I find that truly inspirational, and like that sense of like being so selfless that not because I didn't have it, I don't want anyone else to have it. Like I didn't have it, but I know I can provide it for you. I know I can put you in a path to like have a better life than I did or something. So like I want you to do that. So I would say my dad and my grandmother like really like put me in that path of like what it could mean to how you can affect like society, your family in a positive way.
And it's pretty clear to see, like in the case of your grandmother, her efforts have now been multiplied many times over with all the grandchildren out doing great things, which is phenomenal. So those are people that have inspired you. I want to talk a little bit about some things you've done to inspire others. I've noticed over the last few years, you've come up with a couple of fairly creative ways of inspiring some of your teammates. Can you tell us about some of the things that you've used in the past to help motivate teammates, either serious or funny or whatever, and maybe give us a couple examples and then why you think those things were successful?
Yeah, I think I'll start with the easy one. I am definitely more proactive with action than I am with words. So the easiest one is like I'm gonna practice what I preach, or like if I'm gonna inspire someone, I want to first show that I can do those things before I tell someone that these are some areas of improvement. So the way I see it is like I develop a good sense of my identity. I find a routine that develops into a ritual. It develops into a part of my personality, my persona, who I am. And then I try to be the same person every single day. So that's how I approach it, by being proactive with my actions. Because you have to have a good sense of routine. You have to have a good sense of, this is what I know works for me, day in, day out, on the field, off the field, at home, in the clubhouse. So I've always been better at showing it with actions. There is a time and place to be more vocal, verbal about it. And it takes time, because you need to get to know the person. So you have to be vulnerable enough to put yourself out there and develop a relationship that goes beyond being an acquaintance. Like, I want to know you as a person, not just as my rotation man, like someone that pitches after me, before me, whatever the case may be. And you do those things by always finding time within the workspace to find a time. Like, one day I may throw with you, the next day, like, okay, I'm gonna throw with someone else, just to have a sense of their routine, just to have a sense of what they do to get ready, what they like to do outside the field. And on a much bigger scale, it's really important in sports, in baseball, to have a brotherhood. So I find little things here and there, like there's the more serious ones, like team dinners, and you always send a text like it's mandatory. Just kind of like to set a precedent of how important that can be. And then you also want to find the ones that are like nice and loose. Like last year I developed like the prize wheel, or you develop opportunities to do team activities.
Talk to us a little more about the prize wheel.
Oh, the prize wheel was funny. I'm upset that it didn't stick for the rest of the season, but it was funny. So after we won the game, we would choose a pitcher of the game, a position player of the game, just to like hype us up as a team. And then within the two of them, they would get into a rock, paper, scissors match. Whoever won the rock, paper, scissors match, we get to spin a prize wheel. And then there would be prizes, some funny ones, some serious ones, actually some good prizes.
Yeah.
But it's
Are
just...
any of these prizes that you did not want to win, or were they all things that you would mostly want?
Well,
Or is it mixed?
there was a... to cut hair, I definitely didn't need that. So that was one that if I would have ever won it, I would just put
Pass
it.
away.
I would have passed it. But it's a way to keep things light, but also to let these people know that these things are important. They're important to keep the team bonding, keep the team together. We spend a lot of time together. Sometimes I see my teammates more than I see my own family. So it's a way to inspire them to take the initiative to do those things on their own. Like when you look at baseball or many other things in life, we think that only a certain group of people can do those things, but it's really about anyone can take the initiative to inspire. Anyone can take the initiative to, do something for the greater good, in this case of the Minnesota Twins, the team. So I think a lot of times we fall into the misconception that only the veterans can do those things, when really, like, one of the things I try to inspire is like, we're all a team, everyone's here together, everyone can and will find an opportunity to inspire, and then it's about taking it.
So if you are that person who's looking to inspire others or to motivate others, what is sort of a list of qualities or characteristics that person should embody in order for them to be able to effectively inspire other people?
You have to be a good communicator, and to be a good communicator, you have to be a good listener. You have to be a good listener. You have to have filters, so you are a little less reactive. So like you hear people out, you filter through the information, and then you get to become a little less reactive because you have empathy. So I would say empathy is another good one, because you hear people and then you put yourself in their shoes, like, why is this person reacting the way they're reacting? And then, like, when you develop that sense of empathy, it makes it easier to be vulnerable. So vulnerability would be another good one. You have to make someone feel comfortable with you so they can show you their truest version of themselves. So, like, once you're exposed, once you are once you show someone the truest version of yourself, you are open to the biggest change. You are open to the biggest piece of advice. So like you have to, it's up to me in this case to create that opportunity. And like a good way to create that is by making myself vulnerable, letting people know that I'm still trying to figure things out. I'm still trying to find ways to get better. I'm still trying to find ways to be inspired by other people. So you have to show that you're vulnerable. Humility is another good one. You have to avoid having egos, because sometimes you'll find yourself trying to inspire people that are better than you, and that's okay. Like everyone's better than someone at something. So like it's hard for me to approach you when I'm trying to do something if I feel that like my ego it's like in danger because you're better than me at something else. So like having no egos is also a very good quality to have. And then you gotta have a good sense of family, like that solidarity feeling that this is for the greater good. This is not just for myself. Like you have to be selfless because sometimes you'll encounter people that are trying to get the best out of someone, but it's just to feel better about themselves. Like, oh, like I'm a good leader, I'm inspiring people, which like it's good to look at it like I'm doing something good, but that should not be the sole reason for it. Like I'm inspiring you because I want to get the best out of you for you, so then you can do it for the person that are going to do it next to you. It's about legacies. You want to do right by those who came before you. You want to do right by those that will come after you.
I think it's the sort of the altruism and humility and that sense that you talk about is critical, because I think people will see through it immediately if they recognize that you're helping me to help yourself. People will see that instantly, pick up on that. And so I think you're right. I think having a genuinely altruistic approach is key. And I think that sort of bookends all I wrote down a lot of notes here. Good listener, communicator, empathetic. You got to be vulnerable, humble, and really based in altruism. I think it's a phenomenal list, a challenging list.
Yeah.
So let's do this. So we're going to transition sort of into the second part here, where we talk a little bit about why this is so hard for all of us, really, I think. So one of the other things that I think can often be difficult for people is that people don't feel empowered to motivate others, because they think, well, if I'm not the boss or the CEO or the manager, it's not my job or it's not my role to help them or push them or in charge of them. What are your thoughts? Does motivation have to come from the top, or can it come from within?
It can come from within. It has to be inspired from the top, of course, like the top of, like in this case, a boss, a CEO, a manager. Like they have to make you feel comfortable enough by making themselves vulnerable, by showing them by letting us know what that can really do for us. And then after that, it can really come from within, as long as the people doing it are doing it for the right reasons, or they're not just like doing it to do it. It can definitely come from within, because it doesn't have to be the biggest piece of advice or the biggest piece of inspiration. You're not going to change the world overnight, but like it can be like, you can make it as small as like an adjustment just with yourself, or just with the person that works next to you. Like you can really break it down to like an atomic level, and then like after that you feel more comfortable with like letting people know like, hey, we're a team. This is what we need to work on. Like obviously there's someone at the top like inspiring us, but we can like really push each other so we can meet those expectations, so we can meet those goals. Like I mentioned it, like a lot of times in baseball's clubhouses, like the veterans are the ones that are more willing to take those initiatives, but like it can always come from anyone. Like anyone that has a good sense of like, this is our mantra, this is our philosophy, and I think this can help the greater good of the team. My group, like my people, like I will take advantage of it. So and then another key factor is also like not overstepping. Like you don't want to like over inspire, you don't want to over analyze someone, or like just be on top of them every single second, because for a couple of reasons. You don't want to feel like you're on their way, you're annoying them, but also like if you do that too much, you lose sight of yourself because you're spending too much time focusing on other people. But it can 100% come from within, done the right way.
So it can come from within. You're saying sort of start small, and sometimes even the smallest changes can be really really impactful. And oftentimes gentle nudges are critical. It doesn't have to be a big yelling, shouting match to do it. So
it can be affirmative. It can be like reassurance. It can be like, it's like, it can come with reassurance while also letting people know, like, but this is what you could do better. You know, what they call like a compliment sandwich. You start with a compliment, you sneak in, you know, like, but this is what I think you could do better. And then you finish it up with like, but like you are doing it the right way. You're taking the right approach.
So I think about that as push-pull sometimes, and that often we want to push people or challenge them to do better. But we also want to support them and pull them along as well. Yeah. So you're sort of giving them both. You're sort of giving them the push from behind and the pull from the front in both directions. I think can be really helpful. The other thing that you're talking about in there is when you think about the structure or hierarchy, you know, people from the top to the bottom. One of the things you don't necessarily want to do is do something that's inconsistent with the global overarching goal or the culture of the environment. And I think that this is something that motivating others is much easier when the overall culture of the organization or team or family or whatever is very well stated and well understood and everybody knows what it is. It's easier to do that. But I think it can be very challenging if you either don't know what the culture is or if the culture is toxic, because then it's hard to know where to guide people and how to guide people as well. Well, can you tell me what are some of the reasons that you've seen people be unsuccessful, others or maybe even yourself, when you've tried to motivate others and have failed? What are some common reasons for failing?
A lot of times it's even before you try to inspire someone, you already reject yourself on it. You think that you're not established enough. You think that it's not going to be well received. You think that it's going to go awry. You think it's just not going to have the impact. So like sometimes we give ourselves too many limitations even before taking those steps towards doing it. So that's why it's also important to know the right way and the right person, the right moment to do it. Because like if you limit yourself before you do it, then you're never going to be able to do it genuinely. You're never going to be able to do it effectively. So sometimes we give ourselves too many self-limitations. We prejudge ourselves even before we do it. A lot of times people are also not vulnerable enough. And I know I've mentioned being vulnerable planning, but when you don't show people that you went through a similar transition, or when you don't tell people that you've struggled in the past, when you want to be like Mr. Perfect, or like I've had this figure out since I've been a teenager or something, that really like puts someone like at a like, okay, but like you're coming at me with this like perfect expectation. So a lot of people like they're not vulnerable enough, or they can't handle the idea of being rejected. A lot of people are also, they're not as vocal, so they have challenges of like getting their point across, and then they're too blunt, they're too honest, and to some people they like that tough love, that honesty. Some people don't know it. So I think I've seen people, and as I've gotten better at this, I don't have it figured out yet. I've gotten better at this, like you have to have awareness. So like lack of awareness is another good one. Awareness of like the right time, the right moment, or like if it's not going to make someone derail for what's been working for them. Like you never want to, because you're approaching someone, that put them in a path where they're going to lose their sense of identity, where they're going to change the entire demeanor, their entire routine. You never want to put them like in a box either, of like you're doing everything wrong, you got to reshape everything. So being aware is really important.
Yeah, that's very well stated. And I think, you know, one of the things you're talking about is sort of a customized approach to the person that you're trying to connect with. And I think that oftentimes there are those people that are intrinsically motivated, they're hardworking, they're seeking feedback, they want to get better. Those folks, I think, are relatively easy to motivate. But on the other hand, I'm sure you've interacted with people that are maybe not motivated, not interested in improving, not receptive to feedback. Mm-hmm. Those folks can be a real challenge. And I struggle with that sometimes. Any tips from your perspective on how you handle that individual? Hopefully you don't interact with them a lot or encounter them a lot, but I'm sure you've had that experience.
Yeah, you know, there's been times that you have to hold accountable someone that is not as receptive as you would want it to be. You have to hold them accountable. You have to come at them with a direct, concise approach. But like most of the times there's always something that clicks for someone. You know, like I've had times that I approach someone and we talk exclusively about baseball and it doesn't work, but then you add a personal value aspect to it and then like it clicks for them. I saw it a lot in the minor leagues. You tell someone like, you have to clean things up, you have to work harder, you have to develop a better routine, because like right now the coaches are just like not seeing the effort from you and like, no, it's fine, they'll see it, I'm doing my thing. But then you add like a personal like value to it, like, dude, don't forget about your family. Don't forget that your family is counting on you. Don't forget that your whole community, your country, your city, your state are counting on you. And like I've seen it like where it clicks for people like, wait a minute, like I hadn't thought about it that way. So like you can always seek a personal component where like not that it puts their value or their identity like in danger, but like just you always want to have some sense of urgency when you're going through transitions or when you're like in challenging situations. Like when you have that sense of urgency, it's like, wait, like I do have some areas that I can improve on. There's definitely something that people are seeing that is not like going as good as it could have. So I think just always finding the person driver is really important. Like there's always something driving people. I would say my biggest driver when I was in the minor leagues was regret. I did not want to waste 10 years of my teenage and early 20s and then look back like those 10 years I was in pro baseball, I didn't work hard enough. Or like I didn't like take it serious. You mentioned earlier that I was accepted into medical school. I chose baseball. So I knew I left something behind that was really safe, secure, really cool to pursue something a lot more or uncertain. So to me, every day was like, how can I make that worth it? How can I make that decision to be worth it? Because I know I left something good behind and I don't want to feel that I didn't make it worth it because I was lazy, because I didn't work hard enough. So there's always a driver for someone. Some people have a clear idea of what that driver is. Some people are a little more uncertain or they think that things are just going to happen and fall on their lap easily. But I find it like really curious that when you take a personal approach or you add like a value or like you let them know that what they're doing it's a bad representation of who they really are as people beyond baseball players, like you can open their eyes up a little bit.
You know, when we talk about this challenging person and you talk about reframing, finding what they connect with, I think that's really important. You hopefully will be able to use that to help them re-engage in whatever the collective mission of the group is. But I've actually had a few instances where it's pretty rare that I've taken the time, I've gotten to know somebody, I've figured out what makes them click, and I've figured out like what motivates them and talked with them, and then ultimately found that that thing that motivates them was actually probably not a good match for where they were in their life or their career or what, field of medicine they were choosing or whatever. And so sometimes even if you can't use that to flip them and get them motivated and getting on your team and contributing more, you might be able to use that to say, hey, you know what I'm hearing from you, that's probably not consistent with the field you've chosen. Maybe you should think about doing something else. And they may think, actually you're right. I'm, struggling with this. Now I know why. I'm just mismatched. And so I think that's rare that happens, but at times it does happen. And I think if you do it in the right way, it can actually be a huge blessing for people.
For both people, you get to learn a little bit more how to approach situations that are not as smooth, and you may bring some clarity to someone that maybe just was in the wrong field, wrong profession, wrong phase of life or something.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, tell me, I know that there are not a lot of egos in Major League Baseball, so this is probably not something you have a lot of experience with, but how does ego and competition contribute to this? Because I think that can be incredibly challenging, particularly in the sports world where everybody wants to be the best. So how do you set that aside and say, I'm going to invest in these other people because I want them to be the best they can be and not just focus on myself and make myself the best I can be?
It's hard because it's human nature to want to be the best. Like we want to be the best team, better than the other 29 teams. I want to be the best pitcher. And if I want to be the best pitcher, that means that I would be better than my teammates, which is not a bad feeling. I know they have the same feelings because that's what motivates us, that we're only human. If that's what we need to tell ourselves, if that's what I want my reality to be because it's going to get the best out of me, it's a perfectly fine thought. And when you were talking about within our same clubhouse, it's about making it in a healthy way. Like I want to compete against my rotation mates just to get the best out of each other, just to inspire us, inspire each other to like, I pitch good today, try to be better tomorrow, try to be better than me in a healthy way. Like, oh, I will, because then if I pitch better, it means that we're going to win the game. It's a little different when it's like with other players, other teams in the league because you are trying to be better than them. But it's about with your own team, you want to keep it healthy. You want to like, hey, I'm better than you, because you want them to be like, oh, really? Then I'm going to show you that I am actually better than you, and it's for the greater good. You'll encounter people because what are the chances that everyone's perfectly in tune with a team mentality? You're going to encounter people that take that personally, that take that to the next level. And then that's when you brought up a good point of like having a good sense of the common goal, having a good sense of the broader inspiration, the broader goal that we're trying to achieve as a team. And then you can, okay, like you're taking it too far, you're taking it a little bit like out of what we're trying to do, what we're trying to establish as our philosophy, as our identity as a team. But it can be challenging, but just keep it healthy and keep it always with the main focus being the greater good of a team, of a unit, a family, a group of people. Because like that's what competition gets the best out of us. Competition gets the best out of us. Ego gets in the way a little bit, and then it can also suck the joy out of things. When you start comparing yourself to other people, then like it takes the joy out of what you're doing. When you like try to think too much like what this person's doing instead of like doing your own thing. So like there's a time to inspire others, there's a time to push other people, but you also want to be in your best spot to feel that you're in a great position to challenge and inspire other people.
Yeah. You can't fill other people up if your cup is empty.
Exactly.
Either, right?
Yeah.
And what you're talking about actually reminds me, Simon Sinek talks about the concept of having a worthy rival, which is one that I really like. And, obviously I'm not a pitcher. I was a first baseman, very low level because I couldn't throw. But let's assume that I was a really good pitcher and on your team. And you and I could be worthy rivals with one another if I told you, hey, I am invested in your success and I want you to be better. And you said the same thing about me, that you were invested in my success and you wanted me to be better. And I think that if that's a two-way street, it's much easier for me to celebrate your success and want you to do better, because I know the higher you go, the more you'll help me and the higher I can go as well. And that you and I can both continue to climb together. And the better I get, the better position I'll be able to help you get better, and vice versa. So I think it's rare that people can have those relationships or have those worthy rivals. But I do think that that's one area where if it's a two-way street and both people know that they're committed to helping the other one, that could potentially happen. So I think that's something that you're discussing there that is hugely helpful. All right, let's transition into the third part of this. We're going to talk about some actual practical steps that people can take to become better at motivating others. So can you give the audience just sort of a framework or sort of a set of steps to think through when they want to motivate others? What are the process that they need to go through?
Yeah, you need to look within yourself and then be aware that we all have flaws, we all have things that we can work on. We all have to know who we are before we tell people there's an opportunity that can help you with something. But you want those people to see you, that they know what you're talking about because you've been through it, because you've dealt with it, because you've been inspired by other people's before. You want to be seen that you have a sponge in your head that soaks up information and then it goes through a filter. But having a good sense of your flaws, having awareness of your deficiencies, but also being very proactive at understanding people's needs. Like there's a phrase that when you want to go fish, you don't fish with donuts. Fish don't like donuts. You fish with what they like. So like you have to have a good sense of like how to approach people. You want to go and then find the way to get a conversation going. You want to make this person feel comfortable, make this person be willing to tell you like, okay, I think this is something that you can help me with. How? And then you have to do your homework. You have to pay attention to these people. You're not going to approach someone after one day of knowing them. You're going to approach this person after seeing them and see how what they do don't go with the goals of the team. So, you do your homework, recognize people's flaws, but you also have to emphasize a lot on their strengths. We all have flaws, but we also have a lot of strengths. So we want to work on our deficiencies, but work even harder on our strengths, because that's what makes us good. That's what can make us contribute. again, being vulnerable, I think that's very underrated. A lot of people, they think that they could be seen as fragile if they don't show that they fail, that they have been in bad spots, that they have been in a tough mentally state. You have to be emotionally available. I feel like emotional intelligence is also something that doesn't get spoken about enough. You have to be in tune with your own emotions to comprehend the complexities of other people's emotions. You put yourself in their shoes. You analyze what they're saying. You tell yourself like, okay, if I was in their shoes, would I feel that same way? Okay, no, and this is why I wouldn't feel the same way. And understanding that there's multiple ways to understand something, to approach something. If I put myself in your shoes, I would tell you, you know what, I don't agree with you, and this is why. Because if I was in your shoes, based on what I know, based on what I've gathered and learned, this is how I would react. Engage in healthy discussions, healthy arguments. Not everything has to be conflict, not everything has to be challenging, confrontational. Just like intelligent discussions of like this is what my approach would be, and this is why it would be this way. What do you think of that? When you approach someone, it's always good to tell them what they did good. Like, okay, before I tell you what I think you did wrong, this is why you did good. Or why don't you tell me what you think I'm doing good before I tell you what I think you're doing bad? Just like keeping each other accountable, that this is a safe space. Creating a safe space is also really important. Creating a space of like, there's no judgment. This is where like we say things and we do not add or subtract to what we're saying. We're saying things, we are seeing what we're saying, we're seeing ourselves in a mirror, and that we just seeing things by what they are, and then we go from there. So it's a very interesting topic for me. I feel like there are many ways to inspire people, inspire a team. So I'm fascinated by this.
And I think too, you're also saying that this is something that obviously you're passionate about, committed to. You've been doing it for a long time, but I get the sense that you don't feel like you've got it all figured out yet. So you're viewing this as a journey that you're trying to continue to improve on. It's not like all of a sudden you say, I got it all figured out, I know how to do this, right? You're constantly learning about this and improving and changing what you do.
Always evolving, and every opportunity that you take to talk to someone, you might realize something about you might realize something that you hadn't thought about. Because sometimes when you point out people's strengths or people's deficiencies, you're like, but like I hadn't thought about that angle. Or like when you point out someone's strengths, it's like, I have that too. When you point out someone's flaws, it's like, that's something I can also work on myself. Or like when you point out someone's flaws, it's like, I definitely don't want that for myself. So it also brings a sense of clarity to yourself or the person that is taking the opportunity to talk to someone.
Do you have any common sort of go-to questions that you use when you're getting to know somebody? Let's say mid-season, somebody new comes into the team that you've never really interacted with before. What's your approach on how you're going to get to figure out where that person is at?
Like there's always a trade deadline. Trade deadline is always like a little more halfway through the season. The dog days of July, everyone's getting tired, and like a lot of times we have a couple of new teammates that they're like they left their house, they left their kids' school. So like, you make them feel comfortable, you make them feel safe as people. And then you just introduce yourself. You introduce yourself to them real quick. Like, hey, it's really good to have you here. It's really good that you're joining us. Like, tell me, what do you need from me? Like when you offer yourself, or like when you offer yourself over, when you like open the floor for them to tell you who they are or what they do, it makes them feel appreciated. Another good thing, it's always, and I read about this once and it actually works, and it's like when you ask someone for a favor, it makes them feel that you need them, or like it makes them feel like I can contribute to this. Like it makes them feel welcome, it makes them feel wanted, it makes them feel appreciated. So you approach someone for the first time and it could be something simple like, hey, can you tell me what you did when you faced the Texas Rangers? And then like you engage in a conversation, you get to see who this person is as a pitcher. Because I'm a pitcher, I talk a lot more with pitchers. But like anyway, like, hey, do you have any food recommendations? So like when you ask someone for a favor, when you ask someone to like, tell you what they have done differently in their past, hey, can you tell me about what worked in your other team? What can you bring to our philosophy? So like when you ask someone a question or a favor or something that's going to put them in a situation where they can provide information, it also makes them feel useful right away. It makes them feel welcome, and it makes them feel like they want me to add to this culture.
Good. So we'll start to wrap it up here, but I got a couple more questions for you. One is, somebody's new in this journey saying, all right, I need to do a better job. Most people probably have somebody in mind, either at work or at home or family, saying, I really wish I could help this person and move them along. Any advice that you would give them as they first get started? It can be either encouraging advice or maybe some pitfalls to watch out for.
Yeah, not everything is butterflies and rainbows. There are going to be times that you are going to fail, and I used to fall under this trap and impression thinking that everything was a learning opportunity, which 99% of the cases are. When you fail, there's so much that you can learn from, but sometimes, in my case, just losing is part of the experience. I had a pitching coach tell me once, because I was analyzing a bad start, like, hey, what can I do differently? Like, what's the lesson here? It's like, maybe not finding a reason. It's the lesson here. Sometimes you just fail, which is a cruel reality.
Right.
Like sometimes we try to find something that's not there. We try to tell that we're trying to find the fifth leg on the dog, and you're never gonna find it. There's gonna be occasions where like, what did I do wrong? Like nothing. Like you just fail. Sometimes there's no lesson. Sometimes you just fail. So it's always good to analyze. It's always good to invest in what could I do better. But sometimes failing is part of the journey. Sometimes failing and not having a reason, that's the reason itself. That's a learning lesson. It's like sometimes you fail even after doing everything right. But how can I be the same person the next day? How can I be the same person that comes in and works as hard after a bad day as the same as I work hard after a good day? And as something that I used to struggle in the past too, I used to dwell on my failures more than I used to enjoy my successes. Like when you do good, you should celebrate it. Not to the point that it's going to distract you from your routine or who you are, but like sometimes we spend so much time giving us self-pity or like telling us that we didn't do good. Like we spend way more focus on the bad than we do on the good. So it's always good to just like, flip it or put it under a microscope. It's like, wait a minute, like let me enjoy the good moments too, because that's gonna give me the confidence to give me good results, and then good results gonna give me confidence. And then it's a good cycle that you can always come back to if you feel that you are derailing from it.
Great advice. All right, true false question. Were you the person behind the Land of 10,000 Rakes effort?
I was, yeah.
I thought that was you. Okay, yeah. And how about the Prince?
I was too.
That's you as well. All right, yeah. I thought those both seem to have the Pablo Lopez signature on them. Yeah. And then last question, if you would have gone into medicine instead of baseball, what specialty do you think you would have chosen?
Same as you.
Good call.
Yeah,
good call.
close to baseball.
All right. So as we summarize, I'll kind of give you, I've been taking notes as we've been talking. So a few of the biggest surprises or learning facts for me, I think one of the interesting things was that this topic was about managing others, how to inspire others and motivate others. What I'm hearing from you, Pablo, is a lot of what you were talking about is putting yourself in the right position first. You talk a lot about, being humble, being altruistic, being a good listener. So I think one of the key take-home points is that before you want to help others, you got to make sure that you've done that yourself. Look yourself in the mirror, make sure you're in a good spot, that you really understand people, that your motives are altruistic, that you understand the culture and the environment that you're working in. So there's a little bit of self-work that needs to be done first, probably before you're ready to help others. And if you do that first, you're going to be in a much better position to be successful for others. So that is probably my biggest lesson and takeaway there. And then in terms of once you get to the stage of helping others, a lot of it is just getting to know them, just listening and figuring out where they are, connecting with them, figuring out what makes them tick, and then figuring out how you can relate that back to your culture, so to your company, your team, or group's culture. So I think that this was immensely helpful. You did a great job of answering our three big questions, but I'll give you a chance to kind of wrap them up succinctly here. So our first big question, what does it really mean to motivate others, and why does it matter?
It means that you are selfless enough to put yourself in the back burner for the greater good. It means that sometimes you know that there are people that can provide just as much as you can, and that's perfectly fine. People have different set of skills than you do. Even if we're trying to do the same thing, there's different ways, and some people are just really successful. So like it's about having no egos when it comes to that, and then just taking the good and putting it to the greater good. And it matters a lot because you want to feel united with the people around you. You want to feel comfortable in a space where you can tell people, this is what I think, this is where things are missing. You want to be in a space enough where you can point out the bad just as much as you can bring out the good, because life has its ups and downs. So you want to have that system, you want to have that foundation where you can always come back to, and a lot of that comes from having people around you that push you to feel comfortable and be better.
Great. Our second big question, why do most people struggle to effectively motivate their peers, and what common challenges keep us from inspiring others?
I think the perception that thinking that we're going to be perceived as fragile, it's one of the main things that prevents us from inspire people. Like if I want to always be seen as strong, or like as I have things figured out, that will keep me from doing it the right way. So I think being afraid of be seen as fragile or as vulnerable, it can prevent a lot of people from motivating people effectively. And then, one of the common challenges that we face is overdoing it or finding the wrong time to do it. So, timing is one of the most important things when you're trying to help people. You want to find the right time. You want to have chemistry with that person, but you also need the timing to do so. So you don't lose the message on the delivery. I feel like that's a good way to put it. I feel like if you catch someone at the wrong time, they will lose the message in their delivery. So you want to find the right moment to bring out so they get the most out of what you're saying.
Great. And our last one, what practical steps can the average person take to become better at motivating those around them?
Be emotionally available. Be willing to understand people's angles, understand why people and where people are coming from and why they're taking that approach, and just understand that before you judge someone, you might want to understand why they're challenging you, why they're not being as open. So what am I missing here? So one of the practical steps is just having that awareness, having that willingness to know the complexity of those people's emotions, or sometimes understanding their background, understanding where they come from, understanding their past experiences, things that they've been through, paints you a good picture of why these people might be challenging you a little bit more, not making it impossible, just challenging yourself, challenging you a little bit more to find the better angle.
Awesome. So we're going to get, as you know, we always like to end this with a call to action or a challenge for the audience. So we try to give them something they can do, a step they can take in as they go forward. And, I had something written down, but I'm actually going to change it now after talking to you. You give me a lot of insight. So I would say to the audience, number one, figure out who it is around you that you want to motivate, whether it's somebody at work, in your family, on your team, in your group, whatever. Figure out who that person is. And then second, ask yourself why you want to motivate them or why you want to change their behavior. And then really scrutinize that to figure out, is that something that you're doing altruistically for them, or are you doing it to serve yourself? If you're doing it altruistically for them, go talk to them and get to know them and try to figure out what motivates them. If you're doing it selfishly for yourself, then I would spend some time working on yourself first. So that's our call to action for today's episode. And I think we're going to walk away with some Pablo-isms that I'm going to remember for sure. So don't go fishing with donuts.
Yep.
Don't look for the fifth leg on the dog. I like both of those. And then the other one too that you said was don't struggle with your failures more than you celebrate your successes. Fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm gonna use all of those. I will quote you and give you credit. All right, optimizers, there you have it. So Pablo Lopez just did an excellent job walking us through this session, motivating others, how to connect with, inspire, and motivate the people around you. This was a great topic with a lot of value and a lot of really cool insights and perspectives from Pablo. Pablo, thank you so much for being here today and sharing your experience and wisdom and your passion with us.
Always a pleasure. Thank you, Doug.
So to our audience, thank you as always. Remember to live intentionally, consistently better. Keep striving to be the best human you can be and never stop optimizing. Thanks for listening to the Mayo Clinic Human Optimization Project. If you like this episode, hit subscribe and leave a review. It helps others find us. Know someone who might benefit? Share the episode with them to join us in our mission to help as many people as possible become the best humans they can be. Have feedback or a topic idea? Email us at optimize@mayo.edu. And be sure to look for us on Instagram, X, and YouTube.
This podcast is for informational and educational purposes only and should not be relied upon for medical, professional, or legal advice. Always consult with a qualified professional for any questions. The appearance of any guest does not imply an endorsement of them, their employer, or any entity they represent. The views and opinions expressed by the guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the views of Mayo Clinic. Reference to any product, service, or entity is for informational purposes only and does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by Mayo Clinic.